that's been the main focus, is on that. I believe also the PD as well as CHP has done some directed enforcement out there and they continue to do that to try to slow folks down. We also wanted to consider putting speed boxes of some sort out there. It doesn't appear that there's technology to put those on 6-lane facilities. That's what I've heard. Initially, we thought we'd put our radar trailer or Caltrans radar trailer out there. Turns out neither one of us has one anymore. Yeah. So we can't do that.
Duncan, when you and I met with Cimmerian, I did ask Cimmerian to bring the highway patrol in here, and I'd just like to ask the chief, are we getting enough highway patrol help?
Well, I've been working with the area commander, and Sergeant Copeland's been working with their SET team, which is their special unit, so maybe he can comment on that.
We did have help from both the CHP and the Sheriff's Office for a while. However, they weren't able to fully dedicate somebody to work on the community. They could only do it when they had time and officers available. They're still out there as far as I know when they have time and officers available, but it's very rare to see somebody out there. CHP's got their own deals they need to deal with, as does the Sheriff's Office. Yeah. And so, when they can help, they do, but it's not a lot.
That's too bad. I don't know if we can get Cimmerian back into it again to try and put a little more pressure on him.
Well, he was supposed to have a follow-up meeting, and I believe they were waiting until Caltrans had implemented this first phase before they could have the follow-up meeting. I know one of the other things that he was asking Caltrans to look into was in-street lighted crosswalks. We've been trying to get an in-street lighted crosswalk in Selby Lane. When I met with the field operative, he said, they can't even mark Selby Lane as a school crosswalk because the school is so far away and it's got another intersection between there. But there's a lot of kids come from the young side of El Camino Real across to go to Selby Lane School. And Selby Lane School has a crossing guard there who basically it's quite a challenge just to stop the traffic to get kids across there. The problem they have is that they have these what are called warrants for signals, and an in-street lighted crosswalk is another kind of signal that has a warrant, requires a certain number of pedestrians use the crosswalk before they can put one in.
Chicken and an egg.
Well, the big problem we have is if you have a lot of pedestrians like you have in downtown Menlo Park, people are used to seeing pedestrians there. When you have fewer pedestrians, that's when you really need to warn people when there's a pedestrian there.
Yeah.
To me, it's more effective to do it then. And that's why we justified putting those in on our own streets, even though we may not meet the warrants, the pedestrian warrant, because we have heavy traffic and a few pedestrians. So we have one that we put in at Sacred Heart. We're great to be putting one in. I'll update that later at Hoover. And we're still going to see, Senator Cimmerian wants to try to push on Caltrans to see if they can find some way to make that exception, to put one in at Selby Lane at least, and possibly consider one at Menlo College, Menlo School area at Alejandra, because there's a lot of kids crossing there also.
Duncan, do we know when Caltrans think they've done all they're going to do? Do they have given you a date when they think everything will be done?
No, they've been pretty quiet, and I didn't even know they were going to do it this weekend.
Could you ask them for that? Because after they've said what they're going to do and done it, I think we should have another meeting with Cimmerian.
Right, and I have to have them, when they get done, then we have to have our contractor do our part, because we have to go out at every single sign that they put in and make sure the vegetation is clear so that those signs are visible 300 feet back. And so we have our share of it.
Have you any idea when that will all be done?
I think it probably will be done. I mean, normally the way Caltrans works, once they start on something, they work on it diligently until they're finished. So they've got all the striping done. I think they just didn't have time to get the signs done this past weekend. My understanding they were working overtime on the weekend. I'm not quite sure why.
And what about us on the vegetation? When are we going to be finished?
Well, as soon as the signs get put in, then, we'll have our crew go out
And what is
clear
that?
them all.
A week's job or a few days?
I think they could do it in a day.
A day.
Or less than a day for our part.
All right. So we're going to follow up on it.
Yeah, I'll find out. I'll contact Katie Yin and Dwight Caldwell, the two people at Caltrans that I'm working with, and I'll contact them to find out their time.
Yeah, go ahead.
Duncan, you said that the Selby Lane School is too far away from El Camino for Caltrans to feel that they can go ahead and put in a lighted crosswalk there. Isn't there, this seems to go against the whole idea of a safe route to schools notion. The fact of the matter is, the distance really shouldn't matter if it's a route that school children use to go to school, and there are quite a few children from the unincorporated area on the other side of El Camino that use that as a routine methodology to get to Selby Lane School. So does the state law say it has to be a certain distance, or does it say it has to be a route that's used by children, school children? What is the language of the statute that they say prevents them from being able to put in a lighted crosswalk there on their own initiative?
There's two different things there. The lighted crosswalk doesn't have anything to do with the school zone. The lighted crosswalk only has to do with the number of pedestrians. But normally in a school zone, the crosswalks are painted yellow instead of white.
I don't know that that would do a lot of good for the cars traveling on El Camino at 50 miles an hour.
The interesting thing was that the crosswalk in Stockbridge, for some reason, was painted yellow.
Doesn't do
Caltrans
anything.
had no idea why. When we looked at the Google Maps, it was white, so it was painted yellow within the past couple of years.
It was actually just painted yellow a couple months ago.
Was it?
Yeah. Just a couple months ago.
What about a
They painted
Safe
it
Route
back
to
to
Schools
white.
grant for Selby Lane Schools? Has anyone ever tried to we have Safe Route to School grants for so many of the schools here in Atherton. What about Selby Lane?
The other interesting thing is, we're not allowed as a city to apply for federal grants for the state highway. We can only apply for them for our own streets. Caltrans they have their whole other funding source. Any safety grant that is available to cities is usually only about 20 or 30% of the total grant amount there, and the rest goes to Caltrans for projects throughout the state. And they prioritize what those projects are. And they have a lot of projects that are much higher priority that meet the warrants that, they don't have enough money to do those projects. And we're kind of the tail of the dog.
But a Safe Routes to School project, wouldn't that be outside of their federal project money?
Well, there are federal and there are state Safe Routes to School funds, but they both come through Caltrans. Caltrans is their part and part for cities of both of those grants. And I've been told by local assistants that that's the way it works. We apply for our streets and they do the work on their streets. I can check again, and it's something I think Senator Schmidt was looking into, was whether Caltrans could free up their money and
That's
their
exactly my
warrants
point.
and do something.
Sounds like we need to follow up with Smitty's office.
Well, and I think a follow-up with Selby School. Clearly, they need some pressure placed from Selby Lane School and the parents on Caltrans to go ahead and make an effort to apply for whatever state grant for Safe Routes to School might be there to free up their other money so that they don't have to use that, but also to indicate the parental concern for those children who are crossing at that point.
We had a number of active parents a few years ago when we initially tried this, and I believe they all kind of gave up beating their head against the brick wall trying to get Caltrans to do something with it. I was working with them and we were trying to get the studies done that Caltrans required to do. I've been trying to get them to restudy it after we improved Selby Lane. And now they say they don't have any staffing or funding to even do the study.
Well, could I ask that you contact Selby Lane School? Clearly, if Caltrans is doing these kinds of changes to El Camino, they're also open, unfortunately, under less than an optimum situation because of the two fatalities in Atherton, to making some changes. And it may be that whereas before they were somewhat resistant for whatever reason, perhaps because they didn't have the staff available or there were other authorities, now may be the time if Selby Lane School does feel strongly about this, for them to go ahead and do it. And I don't know if we have the desire or even the legal ability to do so, to perhaps facilitate that for them.
Jim? On the Selby Lane School, Jenny Redo, who we all know, I guess, lives across the street from the Selby Lane School, and she's big in the citizens in the area backing the school and the issues there. And you might contact Jenny Redo. You know Jenny Redo?
Yeah, I mean, they've been sending out an email all about the library and volunteers and helping there and filling the slack. Certainly this, I'm sure, is a great concern to them. They're just not aware of what the potential is.
Yeah. So Duncan, I think we need to keep the heat in this one. So I think we certainly want to bring it up at the next Transportation Committee and report on what we've been able to do. And if we can meet with Cimmerian after Caltrans is supposedly finished, I will certainly be happy to go along with you for that meeting.
I think it was Liz Niss who got him to respond the way he did, and her daughter called me the next day and said, get some of your people to this meeting. I mean, we can make it happen in a day if we need to.
Well, I think it has to begin with, in this case, with Selby Lane School and the apparatus they have in place now, because they've had other issues with safety, just crossing Selby Lane, which we dealt with. And this is an issue, and I know it has been. Now's the time.
Right, absolutely. Strike on there on top.
Okay. Staff reports. Police Traffic Unit, monthly reports.
Why don't we start in September? We haven't had a meeting since then. During the month of September, we received 8 traffic complaints. They're all listed down with the minutes spent working the areas and the number of contacts that we had. In September, there were 3 arrests made for driving under the influence, and one of the arrests resulted from a traffic collision. Our traffic officer was here the entire month of September working in Atherton. We had 11 traffic collisions in Atherton, including our first fatal at the intersection of El Camino and Isabella. For September, we had 486 total traffic stops compared to 448 for September of 2009. Moving on to October, we received no traffic complaints for the month of October. There were 4 arrests made for driving under the influence, and none of these arrests resulted from traffic collisions. Officer Marks, our traffic officer, was in town the entire month. We had 12 traffic collisions in October, including our second fatal, just north of Watkins Avenue on El Camino Real. In October, we had 370 traffic contacts compared to 495 in October of 2009. It also is noted that for October of 2010, we didn't do warning sites that month, so the numbers are significantly lower because we didn't give the officers the opportunity to use warning sites that month. Moving on to November, we had 3 traffic complaints in town, and those complaints are listed with the minutes spent and also the violations. We had 2 arrests made for driving under the influence, and one of the arrests resulted from a traffic collision. Again, our traffic officer was in town the entire month. We had 11 traffic collisions in November, and we had 406 traffic stops compared to 365 in November of 2009. And then finally for January, or for December, sorry, we had 2 traffic complaints. Again, the number of minutes spent working the area and the results were listed. We had 4 arrests made for driving under the influence. None of them resulted from traffic collisions. Our traffic officer was in town the entire month. We had 7 traffic collisions in the month of December and 270 total traffic stops compared to 351 in December of 2009.
I would like you to answer John Rogero's comment here a little bit. That 1 speeding ticket a day, we've been through this before, but 1 speeding ticket a day doesn't seem a lot. In fact, considering that we get so many complaints about speeding, why are we so low on speeding tickets?
Well, we have, for some of the months are going to be different. For example, in October we didn't do warning sites. That was an experiment.